Welcome to this explainer. I want you to close your eyes for just a second and imagine the Earth about 3 billion years ago. We're talking the Precambrian era. The planet is basically just this hostile, barren rock. There are absolutely no forests, no animals, and crucially, zero breathable oxygen in the atmosphere. It's a completely alien, toxic world. But lurking in those ancient primordial waters is something tiny, something that a lot of us today mistakenly brush off as simple pond scum. But these microscopic marvels, known in Turkish as su yosunu and to most of us as algae, are actually the foundational pillars of life on Earth.
So what invisible organism actually pulled off this massive transformation? What took our planet from a toxic wasteland to the vibrant, life-sustaining globe we know today? Well, it wasn't some towering tree or a massive land plant, it was a single-celled powerhouse. Literally, without them, the atmosphere as we know it simply wouldn't exist. And, neither would we.
Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1. The first breath of Earth and evolution. How blue-green algae sparked life.
To truly wrap our heads around our own existence, we have to travel deep into the past to meet cyanobacteria. Think of them as the microscopic lungs that gave our world its first breath. These blue-green algae were the very first organisms to possess the astonishing ability to produce oxygen through photosynthesis. They inhaled toxic gases and just exhaled pure oxygen. But to eventually evolve into the incredibly diverse complex plant life we see around us today, these early life forms didn't just multiply, they physically merged through this extremely rare ancient process called primary endosymbiosis. Picture a hungry, single-celled host organism completely engulfing a cyanobacterium. But instead of digesting it for food, something miraculous happened. The host kept it. Over millions of years, that engulfed bacterium actually became a permanent part of the host, a photosynthetic organelle, or plastid. But science tells us it wasn't just a simple two-party system.
Let's move to and see how this builds, because scientists propose this absolutely fascinating ménage à trois hypothesis. It's an incredible three-way biological partnership. The host cell didn't just swallow a cyanobacterium, it was simultaneously invaded by a chlamydial infectious particle. Now, normally, a host would just digest the cyanobacterium, right? But this chlamydial particle actually stepped in and remodeled the host's internal defenses, completely protecting the cyanobacterium from being eaten. The three entities started sharing their glycogen metabolism pathways, eventually locking into a permanent, long-term symbiosis that successfully established the very first plant-like cells. Honestly, it's like a microscopic drama of survival and cooperation.
Section 2. Unveiling the microscopic dance. Humanity discovers the invisible world.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the sheer historical weight of these milestones. For most of human history, this entire universe was completely hidden from us until the invention of early microscopes. Robert Hooke's groundbreaking 1665 book Micrographia featured these incredibly detailed drawings where he used early compound microscopes to actually peer into the cellular structure of cork. And shortly after that, in 1673, Antony van Leeuwenhoek used his own single-lens microscopes to become the very first human being to observe living, single-celled organisms. Literally overnight, algae went from being just a blurry green patch in the water to highly structured, dynamic living things.
And when we look closely at how these organisms actually move, it is nothing short of poetic. As Professor Raymond E. Goldstein from Cambridge University elegantly puts it, remarkable phenomena can emerge from very simple ingredients. He's talking about the movement of a specific type of algae called volvox. These guys don't just randomly float around. They actually perform these mesmerizing, synchronized movements. Scientists describe their complex hydrodynamic interactions as a waltz, where two colonies orbit each other, and a minuet, where they oscillate back and forth like they're connected by an invisible elastic band. It is a literal microscopic dance completely orchestrated by fluid dynamics.
Section 3. Victorian Art and Science. From royal scrapbooks to groundbreaking publications.
Let's completely shift gears from biology to cultural history for a minute. In 1843, a botanist named Anna Atkins created something revolutionary. By pressing seaweeds and exposing them to light, she published Photographs of British Algae, Cyanotype Impressions. This wasn't just a cool book about algae, it is widely recognized as the very first book in human history to be entirely illustrated with photographs. During this era, seaweed collecting and pressing became a massive society-wide obsession, especially for Victorian women, because it gave them this unprecedented personal freedom to get out and explore the outdoors. The trend was so popular that even Queen Victoria herself maintained a personal algae scrapbook.
Section 4. The ultimate global superfood, sustaining humanity for centuries.
So while the British were busy turning algae into high art, other cultures had already long recognized its most vital, life-sustaining property as food. Our relationship with edible algae is incredibly ancient. Ancient Chinese texts highlighted algae for its immense nutritional value way back in the day. At least 1,300 years ago, nori was already an established staple in Japan. By the 15th century, historical Korean texts were documenting the cultivation of gim, or laver. But check this out. A real agricultural breakthrough happened around 1670 in Tokyo Bay. The farmers there used this brilliant low-tech method where every autumn they'd just throw bamboo branches into muddy, shallow waters. The algae spores would naturally collect on the bamboo, and weeks later, the farmers would carefully move those branches to nutrient-rich river estuaries to grow. It was literally the dawn of organized seaweed farming.
So the crucial point is that algae is an absolute nutritional powerhouse. We're talking high-quality proteins and water-soluble fibers. It's one of the absolute best sources on the planet for essential fatty acids like omega-3s, EPA, and arachidonic acid. It's absolutely loaded with vitamins K, E, C, and the B complex. Plus, brown algae, or kelps, are incredibly rich in iodine, which was heavily utilized in early medicine and is still used today to treat thyroid issues. And to put its superfood status into perspective, under the right conditions, algae can grow 2 to 3 times its own weight in a single day. That is just staggering.
Section 5. Biofuels and Climate Antidotes. The Green Hope for Our Future.
Algae doesn't just feed us, though. It can literally power our modern world. And the best part is, it doesn't compete with our food crops for arable land. Fun fact, this industrial application isn't entirely new. Alfred Nobel actually used the fossilized remains of algae, diatomaceous earth, to stabilize nitroglycerin and invent dynamite. Today, though, we're manipulating living algae strains for massive industrial energy yields. Raw algae can be processed into biocrude to make sustainable gasoline, diesel, and, get this, even jet fuel. Strains that are high in carbohydrates can be fermented into bioethanol. And incredibly, if you take certain types of algae and deliberately deprive them of sulfur, they switch their biological process from producing oxygen to producing pure hydrogen biogas. It's literally a natural renewable fuel factory.
And this brilliantly illustrates the incredible dual legacy of algae. 3 billion years ago, blue-green algae produced the Earth's very first oxygen, transforming a hostile rock into a habitable home. Today, it continues to protect us by absorbing a staggering 50% of the world's carbon dioxide. 50%! It acts as this massive global sink, a vital force often referred to as blue carbon. Modern science is even harnessing this directly by slapping algae bioreactors right onto power plants. The algae traps the emitted CO2 before it ever reaches the atmosphere and uses it to rapidly grow biomass that we can then harvest.
Which brings us to a final thought. If this seemingly simple, microscopic cell had the power to literally breathe life into our dead planet 3 billion years ago, could its incredible ability to capture carbon and produce clean energy be the exact thing that saves our planet today? Or maybe even act as a completely self-sustaining food and oxygen loop for humanity's future space travel? It seems like the deeper we look into the microscope, the more our entire future depends on the absolute oldest life form on Earth. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope this changes the way you look at the natural world.